This is a demonstration of the reference data management support within CluedIn. So to start off, we have a fresh blank account here of CluedIn. We're going to upload some data that has some pretty typical reference style data in it, some lookup values. So let's go ahead and we will import some data. In this particular case, we are going to import some hierarchical data as well, just because it has some gender data in it. So in this, let's upload it to a folder called data. You may have seen from the preview there that it also had a column called gender, but we'll take a look at that preview now. So we've got 1,000 rows here, and on inspection, we have things like the gender. Now, there are about 6 or 7 different types of genders that are specified here. Let's go and map this data into the platform. So one of the values of CluedIn is that typically you wouldn't just be allowed to onboard this data easily. You would have to stop, you would have to create your concepts of a gender first, and then come back to import this data. So this is just one of the many ways why CluedIn makes this much easier. So we're going to tell the system that this data we're onboarding is a list of people. Think of this like the domain. We're going to choose some type of intuitive user icon. So let's do this. And then we need to specify the structure of the data as well. So here we can see that it's going to onboard this data that has these columns on the left. It's also going to turn them now into a column that looks like this with the people concept prepended with it and with a little bit more consolidation and normalization around the name. So we're getting rid of the underscores. We're making it all in the right case. Let's go ahead and create this mapping. So once I've created this structure, I see this nice visual lineage that shows me what's going to be mapped to what. We can always edit this mapping and change it if we want. So for example, I like all the names. I'd like to keep those consistent in the data coming in. Let's, instead of showing the first name, let's show the email of the people when I search for this data within the platform. And you can see that it's automatically detected the ID as a unique value and the email as a unique value. This is great. So let's go ahead and we're going to click next, finish, and we're going to process that data into the platform. So we've got 1,000 records that are now being pushed in, and you can see in a couple of seconds, we're going to see that our data is now pushed in. So we can start working with this data. Let's go over and run a search, and let's click on one of these particular records up here, and we get taken through to their single view page, where if we look at the properties, we can see that here's that metadata that we brought in that nice new consolidated name. We can see that the value of male is here, but if we go to edit this particular record, notice that it's just offering me a text box. So really, this is not great. I want to be able to choose from a conformed list. So let's go ahead and set that up. There are a couple of ways to do this. I'm going to show one of them, and then I'm going to talk about the other ways. Let's show the way to do this kind of from scratch in CluedIn. So let's create the concept of a gender. So we're going to create an entity type. This is a domain, and we're going to call it gender. We're going to choose some type of icon that's appropriate for this. So let's just do something like this and create. So now we've created the concept of a gender. We need to create what we call the vocabularies. This would be the kind of structure of it, what properties would be on a gender. So let's go to our catalog, go to vocabularies, and create a brand new vocabulary. We will call it gender, and we will associate it with that entity type we just constructed there. It's asking us, very similar to what it did with the people that we just onboarded, what would we like to prefix all of those new columns that we're going to create with. So let's do gender, just to remain consistent. And now we need to create the kind of columns that exist on this structure. So these are what we call vocabulary keys. Let's add two. Let's add something like a code to represent maybe some identifier for that lookup type. We'll just set it to type text. And let's also create the concept of a name. We can, of course, have as many properties on this as we want. So I'll just call this name. Let's put it in that existing group, and we'll also just set this to text. Okay, great. So now that we've created the concepts of a gender, we can either import data from another system that already has this gender data in it, in a reference table, or we can actually just construct this directly from the CluedIn platform. So I'm going to head over to settings and I'm going to turn on our manual data entry. And that allows me to essentially use CluedIn as a centralized MDM approach where we create records directly in the platform itself. So let's go and create a manual data entry point. We're going to call this a create new genders. It's asking for what type of data will this be creating. Let's say genders. So those values that we just created before, those concepts, they are already showing up for us, so we can use those. And in here, we can create a form. This allows our end users to enter this data. And this is where we can put all our nice things like validation and things like this. So I'm going to say, let's create a field. It's a text field. We can either flag if it's required or not. Let's go and create that. And let's head over to our mapping. And I'm just going to tell it that you can use this name as your display field as well. And now we can add these records in. So let's just add two, right? So let's just add male, and then let's add female, and generate those. Okay, so now that we've done that, we've basically created those records in the platform. So if we head over to our search, we can see there's one of the genders right there, the female, and of course we've got the male as well. So the final thing that we need to do to piece this all together, I'm just going to remove you, is we're going to head over to our people object. So let's go find that original people data that we onboarded. And under here, we've got this gender field. So I'm now going to edit this guy, and I'm going to want to make it a lookup field. Okay, so this is one of these fields right here. Now, once I set the lookup field, it's going to ask me, okay, what should that pick list be? Let's just duplicate our tabs here, because what we can do is we can actually use CluedIn's glossary for this. This is a really nice way to manage all of your lookup fields. We're going to create a category called reference data. And this is where we can store all our lookup values, things like currencies, things like country codes, country names, you name it, classic reference data, including the genders. We're going to create a term called genders, and we can describe it, we can rate it, we can endorse it. As we edit it, we can even give tags and certification levels of the data here. The main thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to tell the system that this list of genders should be pulled from the following business rule. So where the type of data equal the gender, that's what's going to define this list. So as I save and activate this, if we head to the matches, we should see that there's a male and a female. Fantastic. So if I head back here and I change this to a lookup field, it's now asking me to attach a glossary term to it, which we can attach that genders field that we just found before. Let's click save and confirm. Now, let's head back and let's look at some people. So let's look at, let's just open a couple of these records here. And if we head to this particular record, we can see that the value is still male. It doesn't look like anything's changed. But if we go ahead and edit this, instead of this text box, I've now got this predefined list where I can't set any other value but these two values.